Did you watch the trailer for The Acolyte?
The what?
The Acolyte.
No. What's the Acolyte?
It's the new Star Wars show that takes
Show?
place, yes, or series, show, whatever you want.
You see, I thought it was a movie.
No, it's a series. It takes place 100 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. So it like, from what I gathered from the trailer and what I read online, it's like the beginning of like the Sith and like the issues with the balance of the light and the dark, and like how I would assume how the Jedi came to be, because it shows a bunch of younglings in like the temple, and the Jedi are talking to them, like trying to get them to learn how to tap into the Force, and they have their eyes closed and they're sitting there and they're like, well, what do you see? And the kids are like, freedom, hope, light, and then the one kid says fire, which would represent the dark side starting to creep in, which it shows like, like probably early adult now, like Jedi and a Sith, because they're in like a forest and they're like, what's that? And it's a red lightsaber flying at them. So they all like draw their lightsabers, and it shows like the yellow, the green, the blue, and stuff like the typical Jedi colors. And it shows one of the kids. I don't know if it was one of the kids that said it during the training, but they catch the red lightsaber, and then it like ensues like a dramatic thing. It looks sick.
It should be cool. I mean, I'm like torn on the concept of, the Sith having a birth, or like the birth of darkness into, this foundation where the Force is literally all about balance.
Yeah.
There cannot be light without dark. So to think that that just kind of like popped up one day, I don't know if I really buy into that, but it sounds awesome. Like and the way I'm kind of envisioning that first scene in your head, where it's like the little kids around, I was just like, this little kid's just like fire, and it's like, okay, buddy. So my question to you then was like, is the next step, does Luke Skywalker like swoop in with his lightsaber and go to cut his freaking head off the second he senses darkness?
well, Luke's not alive yet. So, well, I would assume Luke wouldn't be alive yet.
No, not at that point. Luke
Um,
wasn't even alive.
well,
Luke wasn't alive in the Phantom Menace because Anakin was a child.
yeah, because the Revenge of the Sith shows them being born. But I was, for some reason, my brain just went to like Yoda, how he's like 300 something years old,
600.
600 years old. Like that's what my mind just randomly went to. Obviously, I know the timeline of the Star Wars movie. I've watched them 1,000 times, but I think it's gonna be sweet because in the Ahsoka, did you watch the Ahsoka series?
No.
What?
No.
Why?
Ain't gonna be time for that.
Fine time. It's so good.
I will try.
But that elaborates on her and Anakin, because Anakin trained her. So it shows her facing Anakin again because she couldn't face him after he had turned. So it shows her finally like coming to terms with Anakin becoming who he became, and like they have this like face off in like these visions of hers, which is fucking sick because Hayden Christensen comes back and you get to see him play Vader again and play Anakin again, and you got to see him in obviously the Obi-Wan series, which is my favorite thing that they've put out. But seeing him in Ahsoka just really gives you like the fanfare. But during the Ahsoka series, it shows the statues, like these big, huge, like statue monuments made out of the rock that are like from the beginning of everything. like the beginning of, the Jedi, the Sith, the Force, all of that. I forget what they're called. There's a name for them. I don't remember because I don't the lore that I dive into is really big into, like, obviously the movies, the shows, and like the stuff that you can physically see. I haven't gone into like the books and all of like the side stories yet because I like to put visual to my Star Wars stuff because that's how I started consuming it.
So you don't like things that you can articulate with your mind.
I do, but when it comes to Star Wars, I want to see it because that's part of it for me, is like the visual of the lightsabers, the blasters, the ships, the characters. Like, I keep looking at the 3 posters that I have up here.
Here we go.
But off of the Star Wars subject, 'cause if we keep talking about Star Wars, we're going to be here. That's all we're going to talk about.
Maybe.
So with this new format, I want to touch on different topics within gaming, movies, music, stuff like that. Just something a little more engaging for the people listening. And I like to have a little visual.
I totally forgot that was in there.
What
He's watching the video of like a surgery.
So,
It's the social worker. Remember when they said,
yes,
down back behind the furnace?
yeah. So, one of the topics that I wanted to touch on this very first like episode with the new format is a big hot button topic between, amongst the collecting community and the gaming community: physical media or digital media.
Are you asking my opinion?
I'm asking your opinion.
I prefer physical media. I actually own more digital media.
Which makes sense because it is convenient. Digital media is convenient. You don't have to get up to buy things. You also get to catch things that are on sale, if they're on sale on whatever digital marketplace, and it's, a $10 game versus $50 or $40. It makes sense to buy for $10.
Well,
But
here's the thing, though. Of all the digital media I own, I'm not the guy that goes out and buys like the brand new console the second it comes out.
no.
I have a PS4 that, it was literally one of the original releases. So I have next to no storage space.
Yeah,
And
that's a huge thing for me too. Is like, I like to play a lot of games. I like to play a lot of stuff, and for me, when I buy a game on a digital marketplace, I like to download it and keep it on my hard drive so that when I'm ready to play it, I can just go to play it.
right.
I try not to buy too many digital things because, one, I like holding the physical in my hand, and holding that physical and having that physical allows me to play that game whenever I choose. And I don't have I have to wait because it has to download the game to the hard drive. But I don't have, if I want to, if it's like downloading updates, I can stop that. I don't have to download the updates. I can play the game in its original form with all the bugs or whatever, which poses a big problem with how games are now. Is, like, for example, if I went out and bought Cyberpunk and I was like, I want to play Cyberpunk, but I don't want to download the updates because I don't want, for some reason, my console being online or what have you. That's a problem because that game, when it first came out, was a disaster. It wasn't even a playable game, really.
Probably one of the biggest mishaps in gaming in the past 10 years.
Huge.
I hear that the game's awesome now.
Now it's really yeah, I hear that it's really good and stuff like that, but that shouldn't be the case.
It doesn't matter that it's good now because they had their chance, and you can't get past that first impression with something like that.
Sometimes.
Games are very much like songs or movies. If you get a bad taste in your mouth the first time you listen to it or the first time you watch it, you're typically apprehensive to go back.
Yeah, normally you're kind of like, eh. But if you start to see it gain traction again after it's good, you're gonna have that like FOMO of like, well, I don't want to miss out on it because I was excited for it when it came out. So I know it's 2 years, 3 years later, but let's see if it's good. And you start to play it and stuff like that. Which another thing that I like about having like the physical is like you can play it whenever you want.
Oh yeah.
I can play it 15 years from now, no issue. I can play it 20 years from now, no issue. I can play it whenever I choose, no matter what happens.
Well,
Well, unless my console breaks and there's for some reason I can't get another console. But
or God forbid you go blind.
or, or that too, yeah. But for digital, like there's things that can happen where if you lose the info for your account and you can't remember your login, guess what? All of your digital games are gone with it.
Well, and that's the thing. That's literally anything digital. Like that we live now in a digital age. And I think I said this to you the other day. Or it may have been a text or something late at night. There is an entire era that is gone now because those digital footprints weren't preserved. MySpace,
Yeah.
um, Zanga, PhotoBucket. PhotoBucket's a thing. Most of the accounts that were around, when we were kids, thinking like late, like 2008 ish, wiped, gone.
Yeah.
Like I can't log into it anymore.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff digitally, like you're playing with fire there because something could happen to your account. Like your PlayStation account could get banned for some reason, and now all if you were reliant on just buying digital games, you now lose out on all that money.
Right.
And same thing with Xbox, same thing with PC. Like if your account gets banned for some reason, wrongfully or so or whatnot, and you can't get them to give you your account back, those games are now gone for good. You now have to either repurchase them, which that's a lot of money, and like it just to me just to have that even be a thing that could happen. I don't ever want that to happen. I mean, like with my PlayStation account, like if it gets banned for some reason, like cool. I lose all my trophy progress, which hurts, and I lose the amount of years that I have on that account. But I don't lose the ability to play the games that I want to play because I buy them physically.
Right. And well, to kind of like really take that a step further and look into that a little bit, a lot of people probably out there thinking, who's going to ban your PlayStation account? Who bans this? Who bans that? YouTube. And granted, this is like the most extreme of the extreme, but if they find anything relating to any sort of, misbehavior
Yeah.
with regard to children,
Mm-hmm.
your account is gone, like forever.
Yeah.
And not just that account, but like you are
You can
banned
get
from the service.
you can get IP banned, which you can no longer just make another account. Like
Well, I mean, there are ways around IP banning. Like, dude, VPNs. I mean,
I mean, yeah, with the popularity of them now, but like even like for the average person, I feel like if you get that sort of ban, like that's pretty detrimental to you wanting to do anything really.
absolutely. Well, and the thing with YouTube, like in that instance, obviously, I hope that nobody out there is really, getting into that kind of trouble. And if you are, please stop watching me. Um, but to that effect, that's an extension of Google, which means Gmail, which means Google Drive. Like it just goes and goes and goes and goes, and you're basically, wiped off the footprint of the web.
Yeah, yeah. And like with everything just being more and more reliant on like digital, like you have the subscription services, Netflix, Hulu, you have PlayStation Plus, Xbox Game Pass, like with those subscription services, like you do get a lot of value in terms of like they offer you this big array of games, and some games they put on day one, which is huge because if you're a PlayStation Plus member or you have Game Pass, you can play, Starfield when it drops. You don't have to go out and buy this game and spend, $60-$70 on it. You can just play it day one. Right there, you can set it to probably pre-download, and you're ready to go when it comes out. PlayStation and I think Game Pass had it too. Sea of Stars. It was a big RPG. Like when it came out, it was on the services, and you could just download it and play it. Now that's an indie game; it's not a AAA. But with that, if you give them too much power with making games digital, those subscription services, they cost money now, but it's only going to keep going up if they force you to go digital, which is the problem because I mean everybody's making a push for digital. They're making digital only consoles. When the Xbox One and the PS4 were being announced and they were going through all their hardware and stuff and showing off the consoles, I believe it was Xbox. They were like, yeah, you can't share games anymore because they were trying to make that the whole thing not a thing. And I think it was PlayStation who was like, here's how you share games. And they just handed a game to the person next to them. And then that person grabbed the game and they were like, oh, cool, here. And they handed it back. They were passing it back and forth like, we're not going to do that. But it's a thing that could happen where you're not allowed. Like, if you push this digital so far and you make it so that physical is now obsolete and they're not making physical discs anymore, you now no longer have a secondhand market, which means now you are locked into paying full price for that game at any given point. 10 years down the road, that game doesn't drop to $15. That game's still $60 or $70.
Well, I mean, it could be. In thinking about that, I think that the key takeaway is that you're, paying retail price. You don't have a used market to lean on. But I think that as time goes on, relevance starts to take control because there are other things that impact price. If they start to see that sales really kind of drop off, and why? Give me a reason why they would charge $70 for a game that literally sells one copy a year.
Call of Duty Black Ops, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. If you go on the Xbox Marketplace, those games are still full price if you buy them digitally.
That's likely because people are still buying them. They're willing to pay that for it.
I don't know.
Like
I don't have the numbers in front of me for that to show that. But it even if they don't command any sort of, demand for it, if they're not like, no one's buying them, no one's doing that. Like,
that was my phone.
Okay. When it comes to controlling the marketplace and setting your price, why would I give you a choice? If you want to play it, buy it at this price, or else you can't play it.
And that's where it kind of goes. Like, this goes back years.
Yeah.
Like years. Consumers ultimately have the power to dictate what the prices are and how they consume anything, but they need to do it in unison. Like, if you want to stop digital media from taking over because it's important, then somebody somewhere has to care an awful lot, and they have to start letting people know, don't buy digital media, because when you stop buying digital media, companies are going to stop putting money into digital media.
That's where a lot of like the game community and stuff are a lot of the YouTube channels I watch, they are actively making content of like, look, physical or digital, like here's the pros, here's the cons, but mainly like if it goes all digital and like this stuff happens, like that could be detrimental to you as a consumer because we live in a very consumeristic, if that's even a word. Is that a word?
Consumer based.
Consumer based like world where like people need it and they need it now. They need it yesterday.
Yeah, the immediate gratification thing, and I think that's the biggest problem.
It
Is
is.
that you have your gaming community, and it's huge.
Yeah.
But for what the gaming community is, I think there is an equally as large community out there who play video games, but don't consider themselves gamers.
Yeah,
And I think,
there's always somebody that's just buying the next Madden games or the next FIFA games or the next Call of Duty game. Like,
and I think that those people are the ones where it's like, what do I care? I want it now.
yeah,
And that's all they care about. And
yes,
it's those kind of people that are just not saying they ruin anything, but they're definitely not helping the cause.
no, not by any stretch, because if it goes all digital and we get to a point where they stop making digital discs, they stop making physical discs, and they stop making things that you can go out and buy, and they eliminate that secondhand market. Like, for me, just an average person, like, that hurts because I rely on, like, when I see a game where I'm just like, for me now, my day one purchases are pretty much zero. I don't buy things day one a lot. The main things that I buy day one, it has to be Resident Evil, basically. Like, if it's not Resident Evil, I'm not buying it day one, chances are. So, like anything else, like, Final Fantasy Rebirth or any, name a game that, like, is popular or big and it's something that I would want to play, I'm not buying it day one. Because with games nowadays, wait a year and the price is going to be like $20 rather than $60 or $70. If it's something that I really want to support and I really want to play, maybe I'll buy it day one. But I have the option to scroll marketplace and find somebody that bought it and didn't want it and now they're selling it for half price. I could scoop it up at half price and then I can set it on my shelf, and when I'm ready to play it, I can go play it. I have that option. It's important to allow us to have options. If I want to buy a game on Steam that I see on sale, I will buy it, and I will let it sit in my library, and I will play it eventually. If I see a game on Marketplace, and I want to buy it so I can play it at some point, I will pick it up and I will play it at some point. But I have the option to choose whether I want to have the physical disc or if I want to buy it on my PC and play it, digitally. When you take away that option, now it comes down to now I have to pick and choose because the prices are going to be much higher and they're not going to drop as drastically because now there's no longer a secondhand market.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
If I buy a game day one and I play it and beat it and I'm like, I didn't really care for it or I don't really want it in my collection, I can then put it on Marketplace or sell it to a buddy and, I can be like, here, just give me $30. And I paid $60 for it or $70. Like, I can get some of that money back and then I can go buy another game if I want to.
I mean, if publishers are hell-bent on digital media because, there are advantages to it for them, there are advantages to it for the consumer too. Maybe they need to find a way to make the licenses themselves resellable.
Like, something, because, I mean, no matter what could happen to your digital platform, whether you lose your account, whether your account gets stolen, or what have you, or the licenses get out and then or run out and then they take it off the store and like you can't find it anymore. Like, one, for preservation's sake, that game's now lost. For the most part. I mean, someone probably has the files somewhere.
Well, I can almost guarantee the developer will, but
Well, yes, but I mean, something could also happen to the developer. You know, they go under and or something, and that all gets just lost.
I mean, for that purpose, I think Sony or Microsoft, whatever publisher you're referring to or console manufacturer, I think they should probably take a hint from Disney and create something of a vault.
Yeah, but it seems to me like some of these people like don't really care about the preservation of their products. Like some to an extent they do, but like not as much as we as the consumers do. Like some of their things like have resonated with us so much. Like it's more than just a game, or it's more than just a movie. It's more than just this. Like you should worry about preserving that and allowing like as your consoles as you're offering your services like for PlayStation, Nintendo especially, like they do this slow drip of these older titles that you are lost to only being on the Game Boy, only being on the PlayStation 2, only being on the Super Nintendo. Those were your only ways to play these games. With your services, put those games on it.
Well, Nintendo is also a very uniquely positioned manufacturer in that correct me if I'm wrong, but they are the only console manufacturer that actually does in-house development. Because like Sony and Xbox or Microsoft, they have obviously Microsoft does development, but not necessarily game development.
I mean, Sony has.
They have a publishing.
Yeah,
division,
I don't know how. I don't know. Maybe if when they started it, they were doing that, but now they probably don't. They just buy those studios and work like hand in hand with those studios. I don't know if they develop or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't remember, like, maybe Gran Turismo? Is that like a Sony Direct?
Well, I mean, for like now, I don't know. Like for
No,
now,
like the original.
Yeah, like they had originals back on the like the original PlayStation. That's how they started with like making their original IPs and stuff like that. But now it's Sony Studios, but now they have they've accumulated all these other developers that now like they let them actually go and develop and make the game.
Right.
But with all that being said, like Nintendo's the biggest company here that I'm talking about in terms of like bringing their like stuff that's locked on other consoles to the Switch. Like how hard could it possibly be with like having the NES, the Super NES, the N64, the Sega, the Game Boy Advance? You have all of these emulators on your console, and you're not bringing like the absolute most popular titles that you could put on, and you're not even offering an eShop to buy them. Like for the Nintendo 3DS, you could buy the Pokemon games, for like $5 or $10 to buy them on your 3DS. Well, now the 3DS shop's gone.
Well, my boy, you see, those games were built in a code we call assembler. And it is way, way, way different than what we use in modern technology.
But here's the thing. They put Game Boy games on the Switch.
Oh, yeah, you can port them. It's not impossible.
Why are the Pokemon games not on the eShop for the very least? Like, put them on the eShop like they were on the 3DS and let me buy them to play on my Switch. You already have Game Boy games on the Switch.
It's because that helps to drive the collectability of those games and the used market.
They don't care about that.
I think Nintendo does more than
They
anything.
they don't care about the collectability of the games or anything like that. Like that they don't make anything off
I
of that.
can no, they don't. I didn't say they made anything off of it, but I definitely think Nintendo cares about the reputation they have.
Well, if they cared about that stuff
Why would
and
they
they
make it
cared,
available to you?
why would they sue you into oblivion if you're working on emulators so you can play that stuff?
Because it's their property.
But you're letting people access it that normally wouldn't be able to access it. That's the thing.
They want that person to go and grab the console.
But make it available on your most recent console.
Then you don't need to have the other console.
They're making them obsolete anyway. If you buy a 3DS right now, you can now only play 3DS games. You can't go to buy games off the marketplace anymore. So now you can't buy all of those virtual console games. The Wii, you can no longer buy the virtual console games. The Wii U, you can no longer buy the virtual console games because those shops are now closed.
Do you have any idea how much it costs to keep something like that running?
I don't want them. I'm not saying that they should keep those things running. I'm saying if you want to close down these things for the virtual console, bring it to the Switch. Bring those virtual consoles, bring those marketplaces that you had on the Wii U and the Wii and the 3DS shop, put them on the Switch.
That's a lot of development work.
It'll pay off. Not
Yep.
only, if you put them on the virtual console, you're raking in all the money.
Really? Are you? I mean,
Yeah.
because you think about it, and I think about it, and I'm like, okay, these games mean a lot to me, and I know they mean a lot to you, and I'm sure that to the people that are watching us, they mean a lot as well. But when you think about the consumer base for the newest Nintendo console out there, um, take my daughter for instance. She is not going to want to touch anything before the year 2000.
If do you know how many times I've purchased Resident Evil 4?
I don't want to.
It's an insane amount. But
Why?
because it's come out for basically every system since the GameCube and PS2. It's come out on the PS3. It's come out on the PS4. It's come out on the PS5 with a full-blown remake.
Okay.
It's ported on the Switch. It got a Wii release. Like it's been ported to PC. Like I've purchased it because I could then play it on any of these consoles. I bought it on the Switch only because if I'm in a pinch and I'm on a trip somewhere and I'm like, I just want to like relax and play a game. Like if so and so's sleeping, it's bedtime, I'm not tired yet. I can then pick up my Switch and I can play Resident Evil 4. Is it going to be great? No. But I don't want to take a Game Boy with me that I have to put AA batteries into. I don't want to take a Game Boy SP that I have to charge to play, and then I have to take the cartridge with me because now I'm at risk of losing my, collectible cartridge. If they put it on the Switch and they charged me $10 to download, like, it doesn't take up much space. I'm doing it all day long.
I mean this in the most respectful way possible. As I look around the studio here and see literally 12 different items of Resident Evil memorabilia, I have to let you know I think you are in the minority on that one.
I'm just as an example, like Pokemon
Yes,
exist.
huge.
I can't speak.
Nintendo isn't looking back though. They're looking
But they
for what
should because it's all about letting like if you don't want people to emulate your games, then why don't you emulate the game yourself and put it on your system so that then I as a consumer or you as a consumer can play it legally.
Because I'm going to make 10 million more dollars off the next new idea.
Yes, but also
It's all about
why not make all of that money off your new release, but also just make a little passive money
it makes
everywhere
sense. It
else?
absolutely makes sense. To that end, all I have to offer to you is that people who know how to write this code are not cheap. I'm serious. I'm serious. A team of 10, like, and that's 10 people who understand, the necessary principles of computer science to actually put together these games literally will cost $1 million a year or more. And to that end, the people that will understand the language they were originally written in are mostly retired because, like, codes, and I'm getting kind of nerdy with this, but like the languages like assembler, which some of the original, like I think the Game Boy was in it, and the NES, and I believe Super Nintendo was also in it. They are literally so old that the people who were like learning it are like 60 and 70 years old now.
There are people that literally rip the data from, Mario, from Zelda, from Metroid, from all of these old games that were made in that, and they literally write new stuff so that they can do ROM hacks and stuff.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, you can actually, like, you pull the old code off and then you translate it to, I don't know what the Switch runs on. It's almost guaranteed not to be Java. It's going to have to be something much more robust than that. It's probably C++ if I had to guess, but it's not like a, okay, this does this, now I need to do this with this. It doesn't translate that simply. These people are taking like a lot of their time to do this kind of stuff. And
Yes.
that's,
But then Nintendo wants to come after them and make an example out of them so people don't do that anymore. Well, if you don't want people to do X, Y, and Z, then take the people that you're making an example of and hire them yourself,
I
and
think
they'll do the work for you.
that has been adopted at many, many tech companies over the years. Um, Facebook, now Meta, originally actually had a hackathon where anybody could participate, and the people that did really well did tend to get job offers. That's how they're so far
I
ahead now.
I do believe that actually did happen with a game. I don't know what, but I'm pretty sure like these people made um a like updated version of a game. Like they went through Unreal and they made like a complete revamp of the game, and then the company told them, "Hey, shut that down, but let's have a little conversation here. You want to do that like legitimately? Like
That's totally
we'll
reasonable, and
we'll hire you."
it kind of makes sense with what you're saying because if I remember correctly, Unreal is actually published by Epic. It's like
Yeah.
it's basically an engine that they wrote that surfaces a bunch of predefined libraries to use in game development. They uh, Epic owns that, so if somebody was leveraging it and didn't have the proper rights, I could absolutely see Epic being like, "Yeah, you're not going to do that, but maybe since you're so good." Because Epic's a very forward-thinking tech company.
There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of talent, and they can do a lot with not only ROM hacks, but they can do a lot with just making their own games in general. Like it doesn't take much for somebody to just swoop by and be like, "Hey, I see your talent. Let's have a conversation." Which this is the perfect um segue into like another topic that I wanted to talk about. Um since we're talking about like porting stuff and C++, yeah. So with stuff that we're talking about like ports, and we're talking about like making these games playable on the current systems and stuff, remakes and remasters.
By the way, I have your IP address now.
Remakes and remasters are a perfect way to do exactly that. It's bringing a old IP like with Crash Bandicoot. You could play the old Crash Bandicoots on on the original PlayStation. They made them available on the PS3 where you could buy them for like, $4, $5, I think, and you could play them digitally as they were on the PlayStation 1. But then what they did was they did a insane trilogy where they took 1, 2, and 3 and they remade them from the ground up, and you're now playing basically the same game, but it's now updated, looks sharper, feels better, higher frame rates, higher resolution, etc. And that is a great way to play. Same with the Spyro game. Like, they did the same thing with Spyro. Is they made it they did a whole remake from the ground up, and
That just ruined Drew Barrymore for me. I forgot she did that. Oh, God.
they made it so that, the new crowd can now play Spyro, and they don't have to go back to these old, bad graphics.
The problem is they're not marketing it the way they marketed the original Spyro.
You shouldn't have to.
Why? I mean, it's 20 years at this point almost, or more, 25.
Because I feel like nowadays, you don't have to market like you did back in the day.
How old were you when you played Spyro?
I have no idea.
Tell me the year, I'll do the math.
What?
It had to be like 97 or 98.
Well, I think the original PlayStation came out, 94? 94?
Was it 94? It was 94 or 96.
I feel like it was 96. So I was probably playing it, I don't know, 98, 99 maybe?
I am definitely going to be doing the rest of these episodes with a laptop in front of me. So my point on that, if it was 98 and you were probably around 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
same. I mean, I'm a little older than you, but so if we're playing Spyro as 8-year-olds, let's stop and think about 8-year-olds today. They would have been born in 2015, 2016.
Sure.
Would have no clue what the hell a little purple dragon is at all. So
That's where we come in as dads.
Yeah, that's where we come in as dads. But if it was that kind of hype then, and you fast forward, that amount of years, 25 years ahead, and it's like, oh, let's reissue this on something with amazing graphics. Why wouldn't you try to recreate that success again?
Well, we also live in the information age where you could kids are watching streamers, kids are watching YouTube.
This is the lack of information age.
You are you could just hop on Twitch or YouTube and see somebody playing Spyro, see somebody playing Crash, and be like, "Oh, what's that?" And it's just as easily marketed that way.
Sure, but I think that if you have,
streamers and YouTube is basically free marketing in a way.
Like if you throw a commercial together and put it out on streaming services, I mean, most of them don't, really have a ton of ads, but or just a YouTube ad campaign where it was, just gameplay. And, a couple graphics, the way they did for TV when it first came out.
They probably did that.
I'm sure it would have gained tons of traction. By the way, since I did look it up, September 9th, 1995, this PlayStation 1 launched in the North American thing.
Camera's way up there.
Continent.
Since our GoPro is just...
in the continental U.S.
But, with the remakes and remasters, me personally, I know they get a lot of backlash and they get a lot of hate, because it's good, come up with something original. But, I, for one, just enjoy them bringing this kind of stuff for the newer audience because it preserves those games and makes them accessible for people that may not be into collecting games or may not be into whatever.
Well, it's an opportunity. Um, I think it really serves multiple purposes at that point when you introduce it, and through forward engineering and a remaster or potentially a remake. I would have to say that I prefer remasters to remakes. I am going to be kind rewind because there's a reminder on the cassette. It's actually from Blockbuster.
Be kind.
Um,
Rewind. Oh, it's already.
oh, it's auto rewinding. What a great
What?
VCR. That was a feature that a lot of them didn't have. That's noisy. Is that thing going to blow up?
That's pretty wild. I didn't know it did that.
But to your point, I prefer remasters to remakes. I feel like some developers and publishers get a little overzealous with stuff when they remake it because
I can agree.
they're redeveloping it.
Another thing with that you're now that we're like that you mentioned that is they do take liberties and like they do change things because sometimes like the original game was a product of its time. So now, like, in the new age, like, they're like, oh, we can't have that in this anymore. So
Well,
then
yeah,
they
and
take
times
something
change.
out, and it's like, just keep it in. Like,
I
keep it
am
in.
both horrified and super excited to see what GTA 6 brings because they have been like, the proverbial middle finger to anything that anybody cares about
True.
up until this point where it's like what is socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And they're like for PS3, PS4, I think it was GTA 4, GTA 5 are like top ranked games from Metacritic.
I mean,
Like people
yeah.
generally are accepting of it and it doesn't matter. And I have no idea how they earned amnesty, but nobody else does. Those are games that will never get remade. And I mean, that was the point that I was trying to make was like, because every iteration is a remake.
Yeah, like, for that kind of stuff, like, if they announced, like, Grand Theft Auto 3 remake, I'd be like, why?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, so we go back to Liberty City
Yeah, like, they did remasters.
with the parachute
though.
pants.
They did remasters of 3 Vice City and San Andreas, and it was a disaster.
Well, that's because they didn't actually change anything.
Yeah.
They just,
They just put a
ported
little
it
spit
to-
polish, and they were like, buy it.
Yeah, they ported it to a different console, and they were like, "Oh yeah, look." And it's like, what are you talking about? Look, the guy still looks like he's driving a box for a taxi cab.
Yeah, it's the thing that unfortunately now, like, people don't take the time to, like, do it properly. They just kind of, like, get an idea and they're like, yeah, let's do that. And then they just kind of, like, push it out. But if you would have just taken the time and made sure, like, it's functioning and it works when you push it out, then maybe it would do a little better. Like, the trilogy that they remastered for the Grand Theft Auto games were a disaster. They were unplayable, I'm pretty sure. Like, you couldn't even, like, get past a certain point because the game would just crash,
Time is money.
which is a problem.
And I think that given today's society, it's very clear what the most important thing is.
Power and money.
To that end, I will remind you that everybody hates Hollywood because they keep regurgitating the same old stuff. So,
Yeah, that movies do get a lot of hate when they do a remake. But the same thing goes for movies, too. Is like, I love a good remake.
it doesn't even matter if it's a remake. If you have a movie that is remotely like the same concept as something that happened 5-10 years ago, people are like, no. No.
That's the thing I also hate about, like, the time that we live in of social media and the internet is, like, people, I feel like they just watch stuff so that they can complain about it. Even if they love the movie, they still just want to complain about it. If they love the game, they're still going to complain. They're going to find something to complain about.
Complaining makes you feel heard.
It's the worst. It's the worst. And, like, for a dedicated fan base, like the Star Wars movies or, Resident Evil games or what have you, the majority just make my head hurt because they're like, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that and they didn't do this and they didn't do that and they they didn't include this and they didn't include that. And it's like, hey, man, just enjoy the content. Like, if you have a reason, like for Resident Evil 3 Remake, like, the complaints of that were pretty valid. They cut a huge chunk of the game out of it. I can understand that. But you also have to look at it as, like, when they made the game and when you were playing the original 3, like, was that a part in the game that really needed to be there in the first place, or were they just adding some fluff so that way you didn't beat it immediately?
I think that a lot of people need to stop and think to themselves, how would I feel if this never existed at all?
Yeah.
Before they start ripping on something, because that very much could be the alternative.
Yeah, like,
That just kind of gives you a sense of appreciation for what you do have, which I think is kind of an overarching narrative or theme that America needs to kind of adopt as a whole, is, focusing on what we do have and appreciating what is in front of us rather than, constantly bitching and moaning for more. I mean,
yeah.
pardon my
Because
French,
for
but
what it was, like, the Resident Evil 3 Remake, it was decent. Like, it was a good reimagining of the game. Like, when I played it and beat it, like, I didn't feel shorted. When I went back and played the original, I was like, oh, they cut this out, they cut this out, they cut this out. But I'm like, it wasn't really, like, adding to the story. It was just a thing that happened, which was a thing when they were making games at this time. Like, when they went back and retold the story, those things just didn't fit, or they just didn't make sense, so they took them out. Would it have been nice to have, like, a little bit more expansive view of the city and stuff like they did in the original? Of course. If it didn't feel like a bunch of reused assets, I think people would have probably been a little happier. But that's beside the point. Like, when I played it as a diehard Resident Evil fan, I didn't really mind that they cut that stuff out, which, as I'm just an average consumer. I like the new Star Wars movies. I like the new, Star Wars shows. I like remakes, and I like all this stuff. Like, I like it for what it is. Do I have complaints?
you like the most opinionated son of a gun I know. You shush.
So I can hop into, like, these games, and do I have complaints? Sure. Everybody's gonna have something. It's not gonna please you to the max. But is it something that I'm like, sure, like, this was fun. I'm not gonna dive into the forums of the internet and just be like, this game was terrible. They didn't do this, and they made the gameplay not smooth, and
Keyboard warriors have a soapbox. I mean, they're everywhere, man. Like, even in car forums. I'm, like, way off topic here, but I used to belong to a car forum. I was actually an admin for one way, way, way back when, and it was just like, you would not go off like that if you were standing in front of somebody's face.
yeah.
And, there's something to be said for the camouflage of a keyboard.
It's bad. We'll close this with a nice little fun segment for me and you, and for everybody that grew up in, like, we grew up in the time that we grew up, put it that way. We're going to look at albums from 1990 to 1995.
Where are they? That's not a photo album.
Music albums.
Compact discs.
I picked four.
Discs?
I picked four that I thought were some of the better ones for my music taste and for what I think fits his music taste, kind of.
You better get the censorship button.
The early 90s was a bit rough some years where I was just, like, kind of struggling, so I just kind of put some stuff there. Like, 1990 was, for me, not the biggest musical year in things that I like to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was just worried about whether my diaper sat right.
But there was things that I liked. So we'll start with 1990. I'll list the 4 albums. I'll list their singles and a little fun fact from the year that
And
kind
then
of fits.
and then we pick one.
And then we pick one.
Okay.
So for 1990, believe it or not, in 1990, cassette sales peaked.
I can believe that.
Every year after that, they just declined, which is pretty wild.
Well, I mean, they were still using 8-tracks in the early 80s, weren't they?
Probably.
I mean, my grandmother's 98 Cavalier had a cassette player in it. Did not have a CD player.
Yeah, well, now nothing has CD players in it.
My car has a CD player.
Mine doesn't.
As a matter of fact,
actually, yeah, mine doesn't, and neither does Alicia's.
I can even rip audio from the CD and store it in my car.
So for 1990, the 4 albums that I chose was Judas Priest, Painkiller.
That was 90?
1990. The title track for that, Painkiller. I mean, that song is a jam.
That's a good one. What else?
Pantera, Cowboys from Hell.
Nah.
I mean, Cowboys from Hell, Cemetery Gates. Those were like the 2 biggest songs from that album. I mean,
It's all right, but I
not
don't think it was
Pantera's
their best
best,
album.
but I mean, those 2 songs slap.
They have a, if you're in Pennsylvania, there's a Pantera who's a tribute band to them. They're actually pretty good, so.
Depeche Mode, Violator.
Oh.
Because those, I didn't even, because like every time I hear Depeche Mode, I think of Orgasmo.
How did you know my nickname?
Where he's just, where he's like, I don't want to sound like a queer or nothing, but I think Depeche Mode's a real sweet band. That's what I think of every time I hear of Depeche Mode.
Violator.
The 2 songs off there, I mean, are pretty massive that I didn't even know they wrote. Personal Jesus and Enjoy the Silence. The only reason I know Enjoy the Silence is because
I know.
Evergreen Terrace covers it.
You've never heard the Amber Lynn cover of it?
No. I probably have.
They do a pretty good job with it. You didn't know that was Depeche Mode?
No. Then the last album.
Were you even born in 90?
The last album was Garth Brooks' No Fences.
No.
Friends in Low Places.
Yeah, I get that.
Thunder Rolls.
Yeah, Thunder Rolls and Friends in Low Places are both like amazing songs, but Garth Brooks, his ending basically like erased him from history. Like, you talk to anybody who is anybody in Nashville, and they are like, get that out of here.
So out of those 4 albums, which one would you pick that you have to take to your desert island, and that's part of your playlist of stuff to play?
That's hard.
It is a kind of hard one. I'm not gonna lie, because like album wise, these aren't the big albums for me.
It's not Pantera. You know, Friends in Low Places is like literally a staple in country music. I mean, every country cover band plays it.
If you're at the bar and that song comes on,
everybody
just, well, I got friends.
I think it's Garth Brooks. Just because, you know, like Painkiller's huge, Depeche Mode, those are 2 really big songs, like, but I don't think anything eclipses the impact that those 2 Garth Brooks songs really have just
I can agree. I think for me, I think I would take Painkiller because, one, that album rips, and their melodic like leads and stuff, and I mean, Rob Halford, come on now.
Painkiller was definitely like my close second.
That album just rips so hard. Like, it would suck not having those Garth Brooks songs because those are jams, but Painkiller's a good one. For 91, the year Freddie Mercury died.
It was.
So the 4 albums there: Nirvana, Nevermind; Pearl Jam, 10; Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic; and Metallica's self-titled, which I call the Black Album. Now 91's cooking with a little gas here.
That's hard. Yeah, and I think Cobain died in 94.
You would be correct. Which album you taking?
Nevermind was the one with the baby on the front, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that one. Definitely Nirvana. I mean, you think about, like, that is
I mean,
what
that
Nirvana
was...
is known for.
Yeah, I mean...
So you stop and you look at it, and you look at what was essentially born from them finding grunge.
Yeah.
And then consider, the other things Cobain would go on to do before he passed, but also that Dave Grohl was the drummer, and what Dave Grohl would go on to do up until now.
Yeah.
The foundations, and that's it. That album is the foundation for all of that, and I think on that alone, it's just like...
I also just realized that I forgot to write the singles for
Nice try,
those.
Metallica.
But I mean, Nirvana, Nevermind. I mean, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like,
Heart-Shaped Box.
Well, that was on In Utero.
Was that on In Utero?
Yeah. Nevermind had Polly. Is that the name of the song?
I think so.
I have the album over there. I could probably just get up and look at it, because I'm just drawing blanks at this point, because we've been talking for an hour, and we've had a lot of camera troubles, so
hopefully it's still rolling.
Pearl Jam 10, I mean, that album's solid too. I don't think it's the best Pearl Jam album. It's probably pretty close.
Pearl Jam was good.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers album, I'm reserving that for a different album.
I already know.
Metallica self-titled, that album rips.
Master of Puppets.
That's a good one too.
That was their best.
I think I'd probably choose Nevermind, but it's close with that Metallica album, because I mean, Enter Sandman, Whiskey in the Jar, like every song on that album's just like good.
I feel like that was really where Metallica breached their modern sound, though. And
yeah,
that was kind of some people were just not real sold on it, but.
So we'll move on to 92. Fun fact, Blink-182 formed in 92 under the name Blink. And Nevermind hit number 1 on the Billboard charts, establishing grunge as a legit thing. Like, that's when grunge really hit the mainstream and was popular. So the 4 albums for this are Dr. Dre's The Chronic, Beastie Boys' Check Your Head, Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power, Alice in Chains' Dirt. Before we move on,
What an underwhelming year.
I have a honorable mention that didn't make the top 4, but is an honorable mention because it is a ripper of an album. Rage Against the Machine's self-titled.
Dude, that wins.
So, Dr. Dre's The Chronic, Nothing But a G Thing, Dre Day. Beastie Boys, Pass the Mic, So What You Want. It's not my go-to Beastie Boys album.
That's not the Beastie Boys album. I think there was the album actually called Sabotage? Or B-52?
That was
or?
Ill Communication. Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power, Walk. Ever heard of it?
Right.
Alice in Chains' Dirt. I mean, I think we know that this is probably the album that's going to get the win from both of us. Wood, Them Bones, Rooster, Down in a Hole,
Dirt, without a doubt,
Dirt.
I mean, Dr. Dre had a couple great tracks on that.
But as an album, it's not
It's not
something
an
I want
album
to
that I
listen
could do
to a
without,
bunch.
or couldn't do without.
Same with the Beastie Boys, same with Pantera. Like Alice in Chains, that album is a ripper front to back, no questions asked.
I can't believe you put that Beastie Boys album on there. I really would have put Rage.
It was a struggle for that year too.
I would have put Rage
to pick. But I mean, Rage, it did have more. I probably should have put that Rage album on there now that I look at it, because I mean, Killing in the Name, Bullet in the Head, like Bomb Track, like I probably should have.
I'm glad your awareness has improved with self-reflection.
Yeah. Dirt. Come on. 93, Michael Jackson played the halftime show, and Garth Brooks sang the national anthem for that same Super Bowl. Which I read that, I was like, hold up, what?
I would have loved to hear the shit talk going on in that stadium.
So the 4 albums that I chose for that year, again, like, kind of hard. I already know my pick, and if it's not your pick, I think I have a questionable future here with you. But Nirvana, In Utero, that had Heart-Shaped Box on it, All Apologies. Cypress Hill, Black Sunday, that had I Want to Get High, Insane in the Brain, Hits from the Bong. Like, that was their album. Also pretty much the soundtrack to How High, which is one of my favorite movies. Love that movie.
Well,
Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream, Cherub Rock, Today, Disarm, Mayonnaise. That album is a ripper. And then Tool, Undertow, which had Sober, Prison Sex. Not my go-to Tool album.
no, it's not my favorite Tool album either. Cypress Hill is cool. That's a hard one to turn down because it was like, basically all they did. But I don't think that's it either. I think it's Smashing Pumpkins.
Yes! That is 100% the pick. I mean,
yeah,
that album is... Whoo-wee.
Cherub Rock alone is enough to, like, put that album, like, nudged up there. But, like, when you
Mayonnaise
flush it out...
is one of my favorite songs from that album.
Mayonnaise is one of my favorite condiments.
True. That is also mine. 94. Nirvana played their final show in Munich, and Kurt Cobain died. So this year had a lot of good albums drop. I'm going to say the honorable mentions first.
Mentions?
Honorable mentions come first before I reveal the 4. Korn's self-titled, that had Blind, Chutes and Ladders, Clown on it. Like, that album to me is pretty big.
It's solid. I don't know that it's their best.
It's definitely not their best, but it definitely is a good album front to back. Notorious B.I.G.'s Ready to Die, Gimme the Loot, Warning, Juicy, Big Papa, S-Word Thoughts, and Who Shot Ya. That album is a ripper.
Did you just say S-word?
You can't really say that word on YouTube. So, and then I have to say this for my wife, because she loves this band only because of the movie Fear. Bush, 16 Stone, that had Everything Zen, Come Down, Glycerin, Machine Head. I mean, that album's pretty damn good.
This is Bush's one of their better albums, maybe their best album. I'm gonna have to get you your simp card.
So here's the other honorable mention. Alan Jackson, Who I Am, Summertime Blues, Living on Love, Gone Country. That's a good album.
Gone Country is one of the best country songs ever written.
This era of country, though, is just unmatched, man.
Yes, it is. I don't think that was Jackson's best album, but
No, but
you know
it's
that.
it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, mainly for Gone Country, but
So the 4 albums that I chose to be the top 4: Green Day's Dookie, Basket Case, Welcome to Paradise, When I Come Around, you know the album. Nas, Illmatic, Life's a Bitch, New York State of Mind, like that album in hip hop is just a ripper. And if you ask anybody, it's in their top. I mean, I was a late bloomer to that album, but I think for historical purposes, I think it just belongs here.
not just that, but
Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies, Nutshell, I Stay Away, No
No.
Excuses,
not that one.
and Weezer, self-titled, Undone, the Sweater Song, Buddy Holly, Say It Ain't So.
Get out of here.
I
You
don't-
put Weezer over Alan Jackson?
Yeah, because I thought you were a Weezer fan. So
Dang.
I literally was like, I'll just put that on here to appease him.
Caveat, surprise, I am not a big Weezer guy.
Neither am I.
Like, I don't know. I can't get into them.
The further I got, like, during my research and stuff, I was just like, I can't just make it catered to my music taste. I have to try and consider. So I was like, I know a lot of people like Weezer, so, like, I put that in. For me, it's Dookie. I mean,
if you like Weezer, your name is Jonas.
that has to be, like, the obvious choice is Dookie.
Yeah.
That album is...
That was Green Day's, like, rocket
Yeah.
out of the stratosphere. And, yeah, I mean, Billy Joel Armstrong is...
That album is a ripper. And then to finalize this part, we'll do more maybe next episode. We'll continue from 96 to 2000.
We got to keep going.
We'll keep going because I thoroughly enjoy this.
I want to get to, like
Yeah.
the 2000s.
Yeah. So 1995, Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson get married. And Eazy-E died.
Whoop! There it is.
So the 4 albums that I chose for this one, there's no honorable mentions in this one. Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. And No Doubt, Tragic Kingdom. So the singles for No Doubt, I mean, Just a Girl, Spiderwebs, Don't Speak, like, this is the No Doubt album.
It's No Doubt. It's No Doubt.
Whoa.
It's No Doubt.
Whoa.
Gwen Stefani.
Hold up. I think you need your SIM card now.
Gwen Stefani is my wife, so if I don't say it's No Doubt when I get home, I'm done.
Oof.
I'm kidding. She's not my wife, and I would never pick No Doubt.
So Oasis, I mean, that was the Oasis album. Wonderwall. Ever heard of the song?
Yeah, but that was the only song.
Champagne Supernova. And
Sorry.
Some Might Say. Those 3 songs are pretty solid. I don't really care about this Oasis album. There just wasn't really better picks. I'm going to be honest.
So what you're saying is 95 was a shit year for music.
Kind of, sort of. I mean, Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. I mean, You Ought to Know, Hand in My Pocket, Ironic, Head Over Feet. Like, that album's pretty damn so. I mean, Melancholy is also a jam and a half.
I mean, to be fair, 95 was a shit year for a lot of things. Clinton was up for early election.
For me,
I think Smashing Pumpkins. The serious answer is probably Smashing Pumpkins. No, you said Alanis Morissette released her
Jagged Little Pill. That's a
Yeah,
good album.
I think it's probably that one. I forgot you said that one.
I think Alanis Morissette ekes out this one just by a little bit, because that Smashing Pumpkin album is really good. But
No, I mean that the Smashing Pumpkins album is really good, but I think Alanis takes it on this one. Like, I mean,
yeah, because I mean,
I totally forgot you said that. I thought
I
that
do
was
want some
96.
variety in my playlist here for
Don't get weird,
my desert island. So
dude, you're never gonna get an island.
maybe.
And if you do, I'm gonna call you Epstein.
We'll top it off there.
Do you want to come to my submarine?
We'll continue this on the next episode, and it's so weird looking up there for the camera because I'm also looking into the lights. We'll continue this next episode, and look for segments of this podcast to get released in the beginning of the week, because we're going to segment it.
Why are you telling them that? We're literally going to release the segments before they watch the whole thing.
Exactly.
So it's not going to have any reference.
I guess that makes sense. I didn't think about that. I'm just going to release that as the first segment to set up the rest. Yeah, say your thing. Say the thing that you always say when we're exiting out.
Like and subscribe. We're Dad's Game Room.